Jon Moxley just shocked the entire wrestling world by returning to WWE alongside Roman Reigns after signing the most lucrative contract in company history. And if you're not absolutely losing your mind at the sight of the lunatic fringe standing side by side with the tribal chief, you clearly don't understand how completely this changes everything about WWE's power structure. What we witnessed wasn't just a surprise return, it was the reunion of Shield brothers that creates the most dangerous alliance in professional wrestling and puts every champion, every faction, and every wrestler on notice that the real war is just beginning. The image of Jon Moxley, the man who publicly burned his bridges with WWE, who spent years criticizing the company, who built an empire in AEW as their top star, walking down that ramp in a WWE ring wearing his signature leather jacket with Roman Reigns waiting in the ring will be remembered as one of the most impossible moments in wrestling history. This wasn't just unexpected, it was reality-shattering for both WWE and AEW. The lunatic has come home, and the bloodline just became unstoppable. Those words from the commentary team weren't just calling the action, they were announcing a new era where Shield Brotherhood has been reforged under Roman's leadership, creating a combination of technical brilliance, raw intensity, and strategic dominance that no other group can possibly match. You want to talk about returns that fundamentally reshape the wrestling landscape? Moxley didn't just come back for one more run or a nostalgia pop, he returned with a multi-year contract that makes him one of WWE's highest-paid performers and positions him as Roman's most trusted ally in the Bloodline's quest for total domination. The negotiation process that brought Moxley back to WWE must have been extraordinary in its complexity. This is a man who very publicly criticized WWE's creative process, who thrived as AEW's face, who seemed to have zero interest in ever returning, yet somehow WWE convinced him not just to come back but to align himself with the corporate structure he once rebelled against. But here's what makes this return absolutely game-changing: Moxley didn't just sign with WWE, he specifically negotiated to be paired with Roman Reigns. The reunion of these Shield brothers wasn't coincidental, it was the foundation of the entire deal, suggesting that both men see this alliance as essential to achieving their goals. The most shocking aspect of this announcement is the contract details that have started leaking. Sources suggest Moxley received not just massive financial compensation but also creative control over his character, guaranteed main event positioning, and the freedom to work the schedule he wants, terms that WWE rarely grants to anyone. Here's a question that's going to separate the business experts from casual fans: what do you think it cost WWE financially and creatively to convince Jon Moxley to leave AEW and return, and was it worth the investment? The actual return happened with perfect dramatic timing. Roman Reigns was in the ring cutting a promo about the Bloodline's dominance when suddenly the arena went dark and the unmistakable sound of Moxley's music hit. The crowd's reaction was deafening, a mixture of shock, disbelief, and pure excitement at witnessing something they never thought possible. Moxley's walk to the ring was deliberate and intense, his eyes locked on Roman the entire time. For a moment, the tension was unbearable. Would he attack his former Shield brother? Would Roman reject this reunion? The uncertainty made every second feel like an eternity. But when Moxley reached the ring and extended his fist toward Roman, and the tribal chief returned the gesture with that familiar Shield fist bump, the arena exploded with emotion. Fans were crying, screaming, losing their minds at the reunion they had dreamed about but never actually expected to see. Quick question for the Shield nostalgics: where does this reunion rank among the most emotional moments in Shield history, and did it live up to the years of anticipation? The most infuriating aspect for AEW supporters is how WWE managed to steal their top star without any warning. The secrecy surrounding these negotiations was so complete that even AEW management apparently had no idea Moxley was even considering a return until the announcement happened live on television. The investigation into how this deal came together reveals months of secret negotiations facilitated by intermediaries who could maintain absolute confidentiality. WWE learned from past mistakes where contract talks leaked prematurely. This time they locked everything down so tight that the wrestling world was completely blindsided. But perhaps the most controversial aspect of Moxley's return is what it means for his AEW legacy. He spent 5 years building that company, main eventing their biggest shows, and positioning himself as the face of WWE's competition, only to return to the company he once criticized. The perception of betrayal among AEW fans is absolutely explosive. The testimonies from AEW wrestlers reveal mixed emotions about Moxley's departure. Some express understanding that he made the best business decision for his family, while others feel genuinely betrayed that he would abandon the company he helped build for the corporate machine he once rebelled against. Here's another question for the loyalty experts: do wrestlers owe loyalty to the companies that gave them opportunities, or is it purely business where everyone should pursue their best interests regardless of past allegiances? The most intriguing element of this return is why Moxley decided to come back after years of apparent happiness in AEW. According to sources close to the negotiations, several factors converged to make this move possible: financial security for his family, the opportunity to work with Roman again, and reportedly some creative frustrations in AEW that weren't publicly known. The revelation that Moxley may have been experiencing creative dissatisfaction in AEW despite his public loyalty adds fascinating complexity to this situation. What looked like a shocking betrayal might actually have been an unhappy wrestler finally finding the right opportunity to make a change he'd been considering. But the most shocking detail is that Roman Reigns personally recruited Moxley back to WWE. Sources suggest the tribal chief reached out months ago, proposing that they reunite as Shield brothers under the Bloodline banner and promising that together they could achieve dominance neither could accomplish alone. The personal recruitment by Roman adds emotional depth to this reunion. This wasn't WWE corporate convincing Moxley to return, this was one brother reaching out to another and saying, "I need you, let's finish what we started." That kind of personal appeal apparently resonated in ways that financial offers alone never could. The most terrifying implication of this alliance is what it means for everyone else in WWE. When you combine Roman's strategic brilliance and political power with Moxley's unpredictable intensity and willingness to push boundaries, you create something that's virtually unstoppable from both a competitive and creative standpoint. Here's a question for the power dynamics experts: which current WWE champion or faction has any realistic chance of defeating Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley working together as a unified force? The most controversial aspect of Moxley's contract is the creative control clause that reportedly gives him veto power over storylines he doesn't want to participate in. This level of creative authority is almost unprecedented in modern WWE and suggests that Vince McMahon or Triple H were willing to make extraordinary concessions to bring him back. The investigation into why WWE granted such unusual contract terms reveals that they view Moxley as essential to their plans for the next several years. His credibility, his intensity, and his ability to work any style make him invaluable, especially when paired with Roman as the cornerstone of the Bloodline's evolution. But perhaps the most intriguing mystery is what this means for the Bloodline's structure going forward. Will Moxley be positioned as Roman's equal partner, or will he serve as his enforcer? Will the Usos and Solo Sikoa accept this reunion, or will jealousy and resentment create internal friction? The testimonies from current Bloodline members reveal mixed reactions to Moxley's addition. The Usos apparently view it positively as strengthening their faction, while Solo Sikoa reportedly has concerns about an outsider receiving such prominent positioning within what he views as a family operation. The fan reaction to Moxley's return has been absolutely explosive and deeply divided. WWE fans are celebrating the reunion and praising the company for pulling off such a shocking acquisition, while AEW loyalists are expressing feelings of betrayal and accusing Moxley of abandoning the revolution he claimed to believe in. Here's a question about fan tribalism: is it fair for AEW fans to feel betrayed by Moxley's return to WWE, or should they accept that wrestlers have to make business decisions that may not align with fan expectations? The most shocking response has come from AEW management, who released a surprisingly gracious statement thanking Moxley for his contributions and wishing him well in his future endeavors. The lack of bitterness or criticism suggests they either saw this coming or are taking the high road publicly while dealing with frustration privately. The investigation into AEW's response reveals that they may have known about Moxley's WWE negotiations for weeks but chose not to fight it. The decision to let him go rather than create controversy suggests they recognized that keeping an unhappy wrestler would have been worse than losing him entirely. But perhaps the most important consideration is how this return affects the broader wrestling landscape. When WWE can successfully recruit AEW's top star away, it sends a message about which company wrestlers ultimately view as the pinnacle of the industry. The power dynamics have shifted dramatically. The comparison to other shocking returns throughout wrestling history is inevitable, but Moxley's comeback has potential to surpass them all. CM Punk to AEW, Brock Lesnar's returns, The Rock's comebacks, all massive moments, but none involved stealing a competitor's franchise player in such dramatic fashion. Here's a question for wrestling historians: where does Jon Moxley's WWE return rank among the most shocking and significant comebacks in professional wrestling history? The most terrifying scenario for WWE's roster is that Moxley's addition to the Bloodline creates a domino effect where other Shield members consider reuniting. Could Seth Rollins eventually join his brothers? Would that create an unstoppable faction that controls WWE for years? The speculation about a full Shield reunion under Roman's Bloodline banner has fans both excited and terrified. The storytelling possibilities are endless, but the competitive balance would be completely destroyed if WWE's three most accomplished stars of the past decade united as one force. But the most controversial theory is that Moxley's return is actually a long-term setup for him to eventually betray Roman and take over the Bloodline. The history of Shield betrayal suggests that these reunions never last, and Moxley's independent streak might eventually clash with Roman's authoritarian leadership. The psychological profile of both men suggests that conflict is inevitable. Moxley has never been comfortable following anyone's lead for extended periods, while Roman has built his entire character around being the leader who everyone must acknowledge. Two alpha personalities sharing power rarely ends peacefully. The most important question is whether this alliance represents genuine brotherhood or strategic convenience. Did Roman and Moxley truly reunite because they missed working together, or are they both using each other to achieve individual goals that will eventually bring them into conflict? Here's a philosophical question for the long-term storytelling analysts: is it better for the Shield reunion to remain united and dominate for years, or should WWE eventually pull the trigger on a betrayal that creates the most personal feud possible? The contract details suggest Moxley committed to WWE for at least 3 years, with options for extension. This isn't a short-term nostalgia run, this is a long-term investment in rebuilding his WWE legacy while helping Roman cement the Bloodline as the most dominant faction in wrestling history. The financial implications of this deal are staggering. Estimates suggest Moxley's contract could be worth $8 to $10 million per year when you factor in base salary, merchandise, and performance bonuses. WWE clearly views him as a cornerstone performer worth paying premium rates to secure. But perhaps the most shocking revelation is that part of Moxley's deal reportedly includes a backstage role helping develop younger talent and contributing to creative discussions. WWE isn't just bringing him back as a performer, they're positioning him as a long-term asset who can help shape the company's future. The investigation into these backstage responsibilities reveals that WWE learned from losing Moxley the first time. They're making sure he feels valued beyond just his in-ring work, giving him influence and respect that he craved during his first run but never received. The coming weeks will reveal the full extent of how Moxley's return impacts WWE's creative direction and power structure. Championship pursuits, faction warfare, and personal vendettas will all be shaped by having the lunatic fringe back in WWE and aligned with the tribal chief. The wrestling world has been fundamentally altered by Jon Moxley's return, and AEW is reeling from losing their franchise player. The lunatic has come home, the Shield Brotherhood has been reborn under the Bloodline banner, and everyone should be terrified of what Roman and Moxley will accomplish together. Jon Moxley didn't just return to WWE, he returned with the most lucrative contract in company history, aligned himself with the most dominant force in wrestling, and positioned himself to potentially achieve more in his second WWE run than he ever accomplished the first time. The lunatic fringe is back, and the wrestling world will never be the same.